Hi everyone, Sane Man here. This video is brought to you by a donation from Andy, and here's what he has to say. Hey Sane Man, I have no topic. I just want to support your work. I think I've been a sleeping MGTOW my entire adult life. I thought I was alone until now. Keep up the great work, mate, and keep awakening the sleeping giants. Well, Andy, thanks for your donation, and I thought I'd use it to cover a topic that many people have been requesting, which is pretty much California effectively legalizing child prostitution unintentionally by choosing not to arrest and punish underage prostitutes. On January 1st of 2017, prostitutes that are minor age in California can pretty much legally sell their services as prostitutes. Technically. But if a man sleeps with a minor, he's still liable as a criminal. The Democrats have signed into law Senate Bill 1322, which decriminalizes prostitution for minors so that police officers can't arrest those minors, but of course that doesn't mean that police aren't planning on not arresting Johns that use underage prostitutes. My suspicion is that the police will hire extremely young-looking undercover officers, and some of them will tell potential Johns that they're only 16 or 17 years of age, and then the cops will come and bust those guys to boot. Or the police will keep track of the young prostitutes, monitor them, and the moment the Johns hire them, they'll come out and arrest the guys that way. Bill 1322 could actually be a plan to criminalize being a John, as well as basically the purchase of prostitution entirely. I know that what I'm saying sounds crazy, but here in Canada, before purchasing the services of a prostitute became illegal, it was first decriminalized with regards to this idea of protecting women. So if an underage prostitute sells her services, and the John doesn't get caught, she gets to keep the money. He gets a happy ending, and that's pretty much that. But if he gets caught, he goes to jail. Many men purchasing prostitution services in California will have to start being increasingly careful if the girl looks underage. Because you know what? She's a victim even though she's actually taking the man's money for a sexual service. That's like going to a hospital and getting overcharged on the bill, yet the hospital is the victim, and the person getting sick or injured is at fault for basically being overcharged because they didn't read the fine print. My suspicion is that eventually California is going to decriminalize the prostitute while criminalizing the John. I think it's heading for the Nordic model of prostitution. A lot of people in Canada and California discuss prostitution laws like they actually mean something important. But here in Toronto, the police actually haven't made it a priority to go after Johns because most of the prostitution here is not done on street corners anymore, but instead it's done in motels, apartments, and strip clubs with regards to Backpage.com and other escort sites. Remember, you're paying her for her time, and what you actually choose to do with her with regards to two consenting adults is your business. Street walking is increasingly rare as it's easier to order a woman on your phone than it is to order a pizza. I can also go to a local strip club, sample the wares on stage, and then pay an extra service fee above the strip club in the hotel section, and I'm guaranteed to be safe from the cops, and no one is going to say or do anything to me. Changes in prostitution law hurt the poor the most because it's the poor who can't afford the hotel rooms as well as motels. It's the really trashy prostitutes giving their bodies away at bargain basement prices or in exchange for Big Macs that undermine the prostitution market. The escort agencies, hotels, and high-class escorts probably want to see an end to the lower-end prostitution racket because that limits the supply and means they can charge more for their bodies while the poorest men in our society are sexually frustrated and they break the law for a sexual release. Or they get arrested and then thrown in jail or prison by the police. If the potential prostitute is underage, then it makes money for the prison industrial complex. Who knows, maybe it was lobbyists for the penitentiary corporations that secretly petitioned the government for this bill so they could pretty much fill the beds in their prisons. Or maybe it's something completely different. I put a link to an article called Pants on Fire for California Legalized Child Prostitution in the description. Here's what a short paragraph from that article has to say. The law, in fact, includes provisions that officers who encounter these minors shall report the circumstances to the Child Welfare Agency as abuse or neglect. It also authorizes officers to take a minor engaged in a sexual act into temporary custody under some circumstances, including in the event of immediate physical danger or when medical care is needed. So there you have it, folks. The cops are now able to take minors selling sex services off the streets and probably put them in some sort of rehabilitation program, which is no doubt run by some sort of state-funded faculty. So this will make more work for police officers, counselors, halfway houses, as well as many other groups. Is this really about helping young minor women get out of prostitution, or is it about providing all kinds of services that the state can't afford to spend its money on? But then on the other hand, by police doing this, the minors aren't actually charged as criminals for commercial sexual exploitation. That means they don't have a record, which means It's easier for them to eventually find jobs if they want them. Perhaps prostitutes that are minors, when they leave the lifestyle, find that they can't get jobs, so instead they go on welfare. Perhaps Bill 1322 is all about trying to keep these women with a clean legal record so they can aspire to serve coffee and work as waitresses or baristas at Starbucks. I don't think anyone will really know the reason this bill got pushed through. The article also says that young people under the age of 18 that get caught selling their bodies will be sent to juvenile hall instead of being arrested and tried as adults. In Canada, we have the same thing, and it's called the Young Offenders Act, and gangs and pimps use it all the time. What we're probably going to see is older prostitutes basically looking for work, and instead of actually soliciting directly, they're going to get younger women under the age of 18 to stand around on the corners and get attention from men. That way, the older prostitutes won't be arrested for solicitation, and they can use the younger ones as a cover. Gangs here in Canada do this all the time. They use the younger members under the age of 18 to do the riskier crimes, and if those kids are arrested, they aren't tried and convicted as adults. And the Young Offenders Act even protects their identities with regards to court-ordered media blackouts, where it's illegal to share their name. There was even one case where two sisters killed their mother for sport while they were still in their mid-teens. They weren't even tried as adults, and they were released only a handful of years after they killed their mother. There's a reason why the prostitution laws are set up the way that they are. Women selling their bodies are not the victims, but the real victims are the men that have a natural compulsion for sex at some level of intimacy. The men are spending their hard-earned money to soil their rock-hard cocks. It's always been the prostitutes that were seen as the criminals because they were the ones getting away with the loot. But in this new dawn of liberal simp feminism, prostitutes are the victims and the Johns are the criminals. Women have successfully made themselves out to be the victims, even when they're the perpetrators of crimes. Of course, some people say this is just a case of California legalizing child prostitution, but it's much more than that. This marks the turn where California has become more like Canada legally. This is a slippery slope into a sloppy vagina, and lawmakers have now decided what's best for the people. You have to love liberal politicians because their heart is in the right place, but at the same time their head is buried deep inside a BBW's butt. I find that the majority of liberals lack both common sense and empathy. They pretend to have empathy by using the cover of helping other people, so this gives them an excuse for their poorly calculated behavior. Conservatives, on the other hand, have a brain and they don't often care about how their actions hurt other people's feels. All they care about is the final outcome, which is obviously the most important part. I myself am a political atheist, but I do agree with conservatives that the outcome is more important than how people in society perceive your actions, and if you're politically correct or not. Lawyers in California are saying that this legislation is there to protect the pimps, so they can get better cash flow for themselves because they know that the minors working under them won't get arrested. But as I pointed out earlier, that's not the case really because underage prostitutes will still be thrown into juvenile hall. Over the years, California has done some things right, like the 1996 Welfare Reform Act, which ended lifetime welfare, and then lawmakers also passed a law where if women had more kids, she couldn't get increases in welfare payments from the state. But unfortunately, Governor Jerry Brown doesn't want independent women, but instead women dependent on the government, so the people continue to vote him in. Other major liberal fails include raising the minimum wage because when they do that, it actually makes it hard for unskilled workers to find a job, so they usually end up on welfare. The government tries to fight poverty by raising the minimum wage, and in doing so, they create more poverty. I guess they must call them bleeding heart liberals because once you lose enough blood, the whole system dies. The idea is the laws are changed to help women, but they often end up hurting them by making them more dependent on the government. Liberal governments are like those chauvinistic guys back in the 1980s that wouldn't let their wife get a job. Liberals don't have the best intentions for women, yet at the same time they've convinced women that they do have the best of intentions. Women can't rationalize that things are being done to hurt them in the name of trying to help them. As for the issue of prostitution, how is the state supposed to convince 16-year-old girls working as escorts and prostitutes to clean up their act and perhaps get a minimum wage job or welfare when many of them are higher-end prostitutes making six figures? They want to tell these women they're victims, but when was the last time you heard of a victim making six-figure salaries and potentially joining the ranks of the 1%? Some prostitutes are very smart because if they're going to basically ride around on the cock carousel, they might as well get fair compensation for it. If they're going to have more cocks flowing through them than a henhouse and get all that emotional baggage, they might as well profit from it. Many of them should probably get shirts that say, "I rode the cock carousel and all I got was $1 million." People attack the Dubai porta potty girls and criticize them for taking tens of thousands of dollars for crazy and degrading sexual acts with Arab sheikhs in the desert, yet there are actually women out there willing to degrade themselves for free. I say let women have all the power in the world to degrade themselves sexually and make a living off of it. It's better than degrading themselves and destroying a man's life at the same time. As for the law in California, I'm predicting that it's going to make government agencies more powerful, and some private contractors out there are going to make a fortune. My greatest fear used to be that cops would chase the Johns and find them like they do in Europe. But police forces in North America have more important things to do than go after men paying for sex with prostitutes. After all, no one is really getting hurt except the guy's pocketbook. It would be interesting to see how many men have been arrested under Nordic prostitution laws where the buyer is the criminal and the seller is the victim. Only in some bizarre feminist utopia could such a thing happen, and that's why it's going on in Sweden and Canada. I guess California is now just getting as bad as any other feminist jurisdiction. Anyways, that's all I've got to say for today. Thanks again, Andy, for your donation as well as your topic. Don't forget to smash the like button under this video, as well as check out the MGTOW mystery link. As for everyone else out there, please follow me on Twitter or like me on Facebook to get tomorrow's video today. Thanks for taking your daily dose of red pills. And remember, a red pill a day keeps the sloppy underage vaginas away. So enjoy the rest of your day, and cheers.